Warning. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. And your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, May 7th. Your readers today are
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. And let us see what the weather holds for us. Cool today with clouds and sun, a shower in spots late in the afternoon, a high of 52. A shower in places in the evening, otherwise partly cloudy tonight and a low of 40. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a couple of showers, a high of 52. Saturday, a couple of hot showers with a high of 61. And Sunday, rain. I guess we can have a couple of showers every day. So let's just look at the bright side of it. Maybe they're wrong. And grin and bear it. On the national extremes, the high was in Brownsville, Texas, 94. The low in Valentine, Montana, 13. So let's count our blessings. Sunrise today at 6:02 a.m. Sunset tonight at 8:23 p.m. And our weather trivia. During what time of day is a tornado least likely to occur? Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And now we will go on to our front page, our feature story. Iran considers new proposal from U.S. to formally end the war. Iran said on Wednesday it was reviewing a U.S. peace proposal that sources said would formally end the war while leaving unresolved key U.S. demands that Iran suspended its nuclear program and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. An Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson cited by Iran's ISNA news agency said Tehran would convey its response. President Trump said he believed Iran wanted an agreement. They want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal, he said in the Oval Office on Wednesday. Earlier in the day, Trump had sounded more pessimistic about the chances of a deal. In a Truth Social post, he threatened to restart the U.S. bombing campaign in Iran, calling the possibility of Tehran agreeing to the latest U.S. proposal a big assumption. Trump has repeatedly played up the prospect of an agreement that would end the war that started February 28th, so far without success. The two sides remaining at odds over a variety of difficult issues, such as Iran's nuclear ambitions and its control of the Strait of Hormuz, which before the war handled 1/5 of the world's oil and gas supply. A Pakistani source and another source briefed on the mediation said an agreement was close on a one-page memorandum that would formally end the conflict. That would kick off discussions to unlock shipping through the strait, lift U.S. sanctions on Iran, and set curbs on Iran's nuclear program, the sources stated. It was unclear how the memorandum differs from a 14-point plan proposed by Iran last week, and Iran has yet to respond to the latest U.S. proposal. Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency, citing an unnamed source, said the U.S. proposal contained some unacceptable provisions without specifying which ones. Iranian lawmaker Ebrahim Rezai, a spokesperson from Parliament's powerful Foreign Policy and National Security Committee, described the text as more of an American wish list than a reality. The Americans will not gain anything in a war they are losing that they have not gained in face-to-face negotiations, he wrote on social media. Reports of a possible agreement caused global oil prices to tumble to two-week lows, with benchmark Brent crude futures falling around 11% to around $98 a barrel at one point before rising back above the $100 mark. Global share prices also leapt, and bond yields fell on optimism about an end to a war that has disrupted energy supplies. Trump on Tuesday paused a two-day-old naval mission to reopen the blockaded strait, citing progress in peace talks. The U.S. military has kept up its own blockade on Iranian ships in the region. U.S. Central Command said forces fired at an unladen Iranian-flagged tanker on Wednesday, disabling the vessel as it attempted to sail toward an Iranian port in violation of the blockade. The source briefed on the mediation said the U.S. negotiations were being led by Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. If both sides agreed on a preliminary deal that would start the clock on 30 days of detailed negotiations to reach a full agreement. The full agreement would end the competing U.S. and Iranian blockades on the strait, lift U.S. sanctions, and release frozen Iranian funds. It would also include some curbs on Iran's nuclear program, with the aim of a pause or moratorium on Iranian enrichment of uranium. While the sources said the memorandum would not initially require concessions from either side, they did not mention several key demands Washington has made in the past, which Iran has rejected, such as curbs on Iran's missile program and an end to its support for proxy militias in the Middle East. The source also made no mention of Iran's existing stockpile of more than 900 pounds of near-weapons-grade uranium. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Trump's ally against Iran, said on Wednesday the two leaders agreed that all enriched uranium must be removed from Iran to prevent it from developing a nuclear bomb. Tehran denies wanting to acquire a nuclear weapon. Also on Wednesday, Israel struck Beirut for the first time since agreeing to a ceasefire with Hezbollah last month, with Israel saying it targeted a commander of the militant group's elite Radwan force in the city's southern suburbs. Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz announced the action in a joint statement. Israeli media reported that the commander was killed in the strike, but there was no immediate confirmation from the Israeli military or Hezbollah. As Iran and the U.S. say they are drawing closer to a deal to halt their conflict, the strikes threatened the ceasefire that halted Israeli attacks on Beirut. Talks between Israel and Lebanon have continued, but had largely been at the ambassador level. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam said on Wednesday that it was premature to talk of any high-level meeting between Lebanon and Israel. Salam, in comments reported by Lebanon's national news agency on Wednesday, said shoring up a ceasefire would be the basis for any new negotiations between Lebanese and Israeli government envoys in Washington. Washington last month hosted two meetings between the Israeli and Lebanese ambassadors to the United States. Hezbollah strongly objects to the contacts. Since Hezbollah triggered the war by opening fire in support of Iran on March 2nd, the Lebanese administration, led by Salam and President Joseph Aoun, has initiated Beirut's highest-level contracts with Israel in decades, reflecting deep division between the Shiite Muslim group and its Lebanese opponents. Announcing a 3-week extension of the ceasefire on April 23rd, U.S. Trump said he looked forward to hosting Netanyahu and Aoun in the near future, and that he saw a great chance the countries would reach a peace deal this year. Salam said Lebanon was not seeking normalization with Israel, but rather achieving peace.
Contenders laying groundwork for Race to Succeed polling cards. This is by Sandra Tan, who's a news staff reporter. The Erie County Executive's race is a year off, but when it comes to expressing interest for what is arguably the most influential and powerful leadership position in Western New York, nobody is waiting for Mark Poloncarz to head for the exit. That includes 3 Democrats so far: Deputy County Executive Lisa Chimera, Assemblyman Patrick Burke, and Controller Kevin Hardwick. Though none have officially announced, they haven't pretended to have no interest at all. Chimera has taken the most obvious steps forward. She has registered a campaign committee, Chimera for Erie County, beefed up her social media accounts, and is hosting a cocktail reception fundraiser on May 20th to support Deputy County Executive Lisa Chimera and the great work she does on behalf of the people of Erie County. "I just cannot walk away from this work," Chimera said. "I know I am making an impact now." Burke, meanwhile, has also been open about his interest in the county executive's office, having previously served as a county legislator and currently as an assemblyman representing the 142nd District. "I can see how effective of a vehicle county government can be for positive changes in people's lives," he said, "and so that intrigues me." Controller Kevin Hardwick has also been open about his interest in the job since he was asked about it last fall, saying his love of county government reaches back to his time as a doctoral student. "I have as good a grasp on county government, Erie County government in particular, as anyone," he said. Next year's race for county executive has been much anticipated since Poloncarz announced in 2023, during his historic run for a 4th term, that this would be his last. His 4-year term is up at the end of 2027. Chimera, 60, served on the Tonawanda Town Board and in the county legislature before becoming Poloncarz's deputy county executive in 2022. A retired teacher, she has been most associated with health advocacy work and cooperative work with other community partners and organizations. Poloncarz was unstinting in his support for Chimera when the Buffalo News asked him whether he'd like to see her take over his seat. "She'd be a fantastic county executive," he said. "She's battle-tested. She understands what it takes to be county executive. It's a difficult job. It's a 24-hour-a-day job. She's been in the room, whether it's snowstorms or dealing with how do we address these issues, so she understands what's necessary." He talked about her work with community groups, her growth as an individual, rising through the ranks of government leadership, and learning to handle the day-to-day commitments and demands of the job. Chimera, a town of Tonawanda resident, was also just honored as a Woman of Distinction on Wednesday by State Senator Jeremy Zellner, who also serves as the county's Democratic Party chairman. In her comments to the news, she echoed similar themes about the importance of collaboration, partnership, and consensus building. She also noted her executive work with the county's Live Well Erie Health Strategies program and community organizations active in disaster preparedness and response effort. Burke, 41, served as a county legislator from 2014 to 2018, originally winning the seat without party support and promoting a more independent streak as a legislator until he ran and won his seat in the Assembly. The 142nd District includes South Buffalo, West Seneca, Lackawanna, and Orchard Park, where he lives. The Buffalo native noted in his comments to the news that he has the benefit of understanding how state government works, which is important to advancing the interests of county government. Touting his youth, experience, and legislative accomplishments, he said he's proven he has the ability to run a serious and well-funded campaign and would be a formidable candidate that could attract voters across the wide political spectrum. He said he's not intimidated by the thought that other candidates might have greater political backing and support. Kevin Hardwick, 69, has received plenty of headlines and publicity for his office audits and reports, which have resulted in many reform efforts in government and among nonprofits, including an audit of the clerk's office that sent one former county administrator to prison. A political science professor, Hardwick has served as a City of Tonawanda councilman, longtime county legislator, and as controller since 2022. He pointed out that he did his doctoral thesis on the distribution of county services and has been devoted to county government issues for decades, particularly the concept of regional cooperation, reorganizing the different needs of urban, suburban, and rural areas is important to any county leader, he said. He also said he's tried to take a less political, even-handed approach to finding and fixing problems in government as controller.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 15 minutes after the hour, and we will go to our editorial. A damaged relationship between the United States and Canada continues. President Trump's insults directed towards our northern neighbors have caused emotional and economic harms. Add tariffs and the economic pain intensifies. Not only has Canada, as other similarly insulted nations we used to call friends, sought alternative allies in business and other matters of importance, but the result of fewer border crossings and aversion to American goods is affecting businesses on this side of the border. Consider the stakes. Tourism in Western New York accounts for an estimated $4.1 billion in economic activity, according to a report by the consulting firm Tourism Economics. Erie County accounts for nearly 2/3 of all tourism spending in the region, more than double that in Niagara County, home to the iconic Niagara Falls State Park. As the news Samantha Christman recently outlined in the Buffalo Next cover story, the hospitality and tourism sectors could really use some help. The Buffalo-Niagara Partnership hosted a recent forum in which industry professionals voiced their frustrations. Canadians do not appreciate having their sovereignty questioned. They have no intention of entertaining Trump's suggestion that their country be annexed as the 51st state. That comment inspired a boycott by many Canadians who have stopped crossing the border to shop. According to Visit Buffalo, the region's tourism attractions have seen a 30 to 40% drop in Canadian visitors. Cross-border trips are down 16% compared with last year when the slump first started. Patrick Kaler, Visit Buffalo CEO, says his organization has heard directly from our Canadian friends who have said they will not return until the current president is no longer in office. I think that the tensions between the two countries has resulted, especially here, as you know, in a decrease of Canadians coming here for work or play. And that's an organic response on the part of Canadians to the situations. That's what they can do. Canada's Consul General Tom Clark recently told the News editorial board. Still, the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement review process is set to conclude by July 1, with focus on making minor adjustments rather than fundamental changes. The USMCA has a 2036 expiration date, but it requires annual renewal, which adds uncertainty for companies. Talks, which were once touted as going well, have reportedly turned. Republican Representatives Nick Langworthy and Claudia Tenney in particular should bend the ears of their colleagues about how Trump's words and actions are hurting their constituents. Leaders should work to repair cross-border relations with Canada, explore an investment in transportation infrastructure, and push for balanced tax policies that support tourism growth. Leaders can count on Sabres fans always being there to mend international relations, as some 19,020 who sang Canada's national anthem when Cammy Clune's mic cut out. The Sabres play both the American and Canadian anthems before every home game. The News' Eric Brady and Bruce Andriach explained in recent Viewpoints pieces. Repairing the damage Trump has caused by his words and deeds aimed at Canada and other countries will not be easy nor quick. But the cost of inaction is already visible in empty hotel rooms, quiet border crossing, and strained alliances. Leaders in Washington must recognize that economic strength in border regions like ours depends on mutual respect, trust, and cooperation.
And our Another Voice article is on technology. It's written by Craig Miller, who is the president of the New York State Telecommunications Association. Universal broadband needs to overcome obstacles. High-speed internet is essential for education, work, healthcare, and economic survival. New York has made strong progress, reaching over 97% broadband availability, according to recent Public Service Commission reports. Yet gaps persist, especially in rural areas where low population density drives up costs, and in pockets of underserved urban and suburban communities. These shortfalls hurt. Students struggle without reliable connections. Remote workers lose opportunities, and family farms fall behind in an increasingly digital agricultural economy. Members of the New York State Telecommunications Association have driven much of the state's progress. The new NY broadband program installed over 21,000 miles of fiber and connected more than 256,000 homes, businesses, and institutions. New York's Connect All program has built on this success as a national model for public-private partnerships, reaching tens of thousands more locations. But barriers continue to slow deployment. The biggest obstacle remains the pole attachment and make-ready process. Most poles are owned by electric utilities, and access has become a costly, unpredictable burden. Providers face mid-project fee hikes that turn viable rural projects into losses. Recent PSC complaints highlight unauthorized construction support charges approaching $10,000 per application, even when no extra work occurs. The PSC's 2024 rule revisions are a step forward. However, stronger enforcement is needed to curb unjustified increases. The state should launch a thorough investigation to ensure fairness and protect Connect All's goals. Compounding the problem are real estate taxes on new broadband infrastructure. NYSTA strongly supports A6548/S7845, sponsored by Assemblymember Kerry Warner and State Senator Patricia Fahey. This bill would create broadband opportunity areas and provide a 10-year tax exemption for new last-mile infrastructure in FCC-defined unserved and underserved communities. It would cost the state and localities nothing. New York cannot let exorbitant poll fees, opaque processes, and tax burdens undermine this opportunity. The PSC must reinforce reasonable pricing, and lawmakers should pass the broadband tax exemption bill. Let's act decisively. New York's digital future depends on it.
And our political cartoon today is from Mike Lukovich, and he is with Creators Syndicate. It is one frame. It is a ship sinking, and on the flag it says, "Under construction, Captain Trump Ballroom," referring to the changing in cost of the Trump Ballroom at the White House.
Our first opinion piece is by Llewellyn King, who's from the Tribune News Service. Political class is forgetting cause and effect. Anyone who has spent time in criminal court knows this. One of the characteristics of lawbreakers is a poorly developed sense of cause and effect. The young man who takes a gun with him on the night of drinking increases his chances that he might use it and spend years in prison. The shoplifter who keeps at it despite past convictions faces years behind bars. The burglar who robs a house and, while there, calls home on a cell phone negates any alibi. The murderer who posts on social media. This poorly developed sense of cause and effect isn't confined to the lawless. It is rife in the political class, in both cohorts, but primarily these days in the ruling Republican cohort. Actions have consequences. Bomb people and you will get a massive refugee problem. Deny medical funding and you will get overburdened emergency rooms. Underfund science and the talent will pop up somewhere else, like the universities in Europe and Asia. Cut off immigration, and you will have deflation from population decline. Create stateless people, and they will become a burden. Don't raise taxes to cover the $300 trillion plus national debt, and the interest payments on that will be so enormous that there will be little left for the business of governance. Inaction has consequences. Winston Churchill said, "A decision not taken is nonetheless a decision." Here are just some areas where the effect may linger long after the cause has lost its currency, long after the action, which seemed to be a good idea at the time, was taken. Cause: traduced allies abandoned. Effect: the slight and the negotiations won't be forgotten, but the reason for them will have faded with the perpetrators. America diminished as a global power. Cause: profligate use of the presidential pardon. Effect: a further temptation to abuse power and advance corrupt patronage. Friends go free. Cause: the abandonment of due process, seeing a judge, identifying the accuser, trial by jury. Effect: a lawless state of injustice and cruelty. Cause: undermine the elections by falsely claiming that they were rigged. Effect: a fundamental weakening of democracy and the supremacy of the ballot. Cause: sustaining a lie in the belief that if you claim it long enough, it will sow doubt. Effect: truth becomes what those who have the power say it is. Truth becomes a commodity in short supply in the political marketplace. All governments make mistakes, and most go too far in the service of political ideas. This time, it is different. The list of political actions that will have detrimental effects in the future and substantially threaten our world leadership is long. Since the end of World War II, we have led the world in everything from creativity to moral example, from generosity in foreign aid to genius in medical science, from legal thought to environmental protection. Now, political exigency is undermining that. Petty, small triumphs in what are often just the culture wars that have effects that diminish us worldwide. Any day, in the heat of a political moment, another cause may leave an effect that will damage the decision-making mechanisms of the Senate. If the filibuster goes, both parties would rue the effects long and often. If it goes, the cause will be forgotten, but the effect will endure.
You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 28 minutes after the hour, and we will continue with our opinion pieces next, coming from Clive Crook of Bloomberg Opinion. America's broken politics are dragging it down a fiscal hole. Few any longer dispute that America's public debt is growing unsustainably, and that, sooner or later, the task of reining it in will be unavoidable. Oddly, this presumption of inevitability has bred a kind of complacency. In the end, whether we like it or not, the problem will have to be solved. Therefore, it will be solved, so what's the hurry? The answer is that further delay makes an orderly solution harder to envisage. Eventually, a point will come where a well-planned remedy is impossible because the fiscal adjustments would crash the economy. At that point, the only remedy will be default, explicit or by means of high inflation. Americans need to take this disturbing prospect much more seriously. The problem is already so intractable, structurally intractable, you might say, that workable answers have become harder to imagine than outright fiscal collapse. The headline numbers might be depressingly similar, but take a look at Jessica Reitel's new fiscal chart book published by the Brookings Institute and consider the sheer scale of the task. The main forecasters expect U.S. budget deficits to run at roughly 6% of GDP for the foreseeable future. These estimates postulate full employment, no recessions, no major wars, no pandemics, and so-called current law, which assumes that some recent tax cuts and spending increases will expire, as opposed to current policy, which assumes they won't. Relax that last assumption and the deficits will be 7% of GDP or more. Even under implausibly favorable conditions, public debt is on track to surpass its World War II peak of 106% of GDP in another few years. By 2036, it will exceed that by a margin of 30 percentage points, and after that, that will keep rising. Within a decade, so long as interest rates are no higher than now, debt service is set to absorb 30% of what the government collects in taxes. Within another 20 years, more than half. If interest rates start to price in fears of fiscal stress, the debt's upward trajectory will accelerate, adding to those fears, raising interest rates some more, and making debt path steeper, still the classic vicious circle. What will it take to escape this trap? Ideally, much faster economic growth. Conceivably, AI will dispense the miracle cure, but it's very unlikely. Faster growth and productivity thanks to AI will be required just to keep output expanding at 2% a year or so, given slower growth of the U.S. population and labor force. Without immigration, the population will start to shrink within the next decade. Many economists are skeptical about a big push from AI, but even if it happens and it's enough to make up for worsening demographics, growth would have to be much higher than 2% a year merely to hold the debt ratio steady in good times, let alone cut it to restore fiscal resilience, which leaves higher taxes and or lower public spending. But how likely is any such revival of fiscal discipline? The necessary changes would be extraordinarily demanding even if they were executed immediately, and Washington's current capacity to frame any such programs is precisely nil. As Riedel charts explain, to hold federal debt at 100% of GDP, longer-term savings in the form of tax increases and or spending cuts would have to run between 4% and 5% of GDP, equivalent to more than $2 trillion a year by the middle of the next decade. Suppose the U.S. raised its income tax rates across the board by 10 percentage points. This would cut only about 3.5% of GDP from projected deficits. A European-style value-added tax of 20%, likewise inconceivable, would cut maybe 3% of GDP from future deficits. Taxing household incomes above $200,000 single and $400,000 married at 50% would yield about 1.5% of GDP in savings. A wealth tax like the one proposed by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, another 0.6%. All these are statistic estimates, by the way, which assume heroically that much higher taxes would be partly self-defeating by suppressing growth. The spending side is no easier. Two programs account for almost all of the actual and projected rise in deficits: Social Security and Medicare. Yet, one thing that a supposedly polarized Washington has agreed upon is not to touch either category of spending. To accommodate their growth, other programs have been squeezed over time, but there is not much left to trim. In some cases, quite the opposite. Spending on defense will surely need to increase because of broken alliances and the deteriorating geopolitical environment. Once you understand the scale of the problem, you see that an effective solution requires an equally unimaginable political transformation. Restoring fiscal control demands a comprehensive plan to combine all of the above, to raise taxes and cut entitlement spending substantially. These are highly unpopular policies that neither party is willing to contemplate, and the current political incapacity is deeply entrenched. Today, most of the country's politicians see compromise as defeat and deplore cross-party cooperation in principle. Contradictory priorities, refusal to share political pain, and a determination to look away from the problem rule out stable long-term fiscal strategies. The country needs another Simpson-Bowles project, only bolder, with a commitment to follow through. Right now, the idea is laughable. Sad to say, barring an AI miracle or rebirth of functional politics, the likeliest outcome is therefore default gradual, with higher inflation eroding the real value of federal debt, or sudden with outright debt restructurings and all the attendant mayhem. Meantime, more of the same isn't going to cut it.
And our last opinion piece is written by Kevin Frazier from the Tribune News Service. Plugging gaps with AI while America ages and farms struggle. Two truths and a lie. America is getting older. American farmers are in trouble. And artificial intelligence is too unreliable to assist with solving these and related public policy concerns. Truth, the old age dependency ratio is surging. A combination of longer life expectancies and lower birth rates has put the U.S. in a tough position. The dwindling fraction of Americans in the labor force must generate enough economic growth to cover the nation's infrastructure needs, financial ambitions, and health care demands, especially for our seniors. This tall order will not be achieved through a can-do attitude. We need huge surges in labor productivity so that fewer workers can add more value. Education can help workers discover new ways to do the same job more efficiently. Likewise, experience can uncover breakthroughs that stretch the contributions of a single worker. Ultimately, though, something more transformative will be required if the nation's shrinking workforce will meet the needs of society. Truth. Farms across America are on the verge of closing. A combination of factors have left farmers struggling to get by. There's the trade situation. Shifting tariffs have become a boon to some producers while leaving others in a gulch. There's the immigration slowdown, which hinders access to labor at key points in the harvest. There's also the generational gap. More recently, a war is imperiling access to key supplies. The aggregation of these trends spells long-term negative consequences. those consequences reach beyond the nation's farming communities. Food security is national security, as noted by the American Farm Bureau Federation. Lie. AI has no part in play in remedying these time-sensitive and significant issues. Let's turn first to the question of an aging population and the need for a surge in labor activity. In critical domains, there's simply not going to be enough Americans to fill key roles. Within a decade, more than 1.7 million Americans will need some form of elder care. AI can step in. Japan shows the way forward. They've deployed robots that complement existing elder care providers so that facilities can meet the needs of all residents. While the use of robots in critical settings may make some folks uneasy, it's important to be clear-eyed about the path forward. Augmenting human labor is the only option. There's simply not enough workers to step into all these roles in elder care and other industries that are woefully short on workers. This blunt conclusion is important to accept so that we can start asking how to build and implement AI tools for these tasks rather than contesting their inclusion in the first place. Second, saving our farms and securing our food supply. We must champion an agricultural policy that leverages AI so that more producers can engage in precise agriculture, tech-enabled farming. This way, the farming broadly refers to the data-driven practice of making timely, informed decisions at a microscale to produce better outcomes for farm soils, plants, animals, and the farmer. A farm that has adopted precision agriculture might use satellite, aircraft, and drone data to develop crop conditions, soil, and yield maps, install cameras and vision-based sensors on farm to monitor crop health, or employ unmanned farm equipment with a pre-programmed path to handle operations like planting, pruning, watering, or harvesting. While large farms have been deploying such tech for a long time, only 1 in 4 farmers do so across the United States. Yet it's these smallholder farmers that stand to benefit the most from AI-aided agriculture. AI-powered chatbots like Farmer Chat and AI tools that aid with planning crops and setting prices can go a long way toward helping small farmers navigate a complex and shifting economic moment. Likewise, farming robots can take on some of the essential farming tasks for which there are no viable human-based labor alternatives. Consider, for example, the development of an AI scarecrow to keep pests away. It's a key example of a productivity-enhancing task that is ill-suited for human workers. America doesn't have the luxury of letting fear-based regulation guide the AI revolution. The demographics won't wait, the farms won't wait, and neither can we.
Armor IMAC to close plant, cutting 199 jobs. But the company will expand a location in Kentucky and add jobs there. It's a notice filed with the state labor department and the Armor IMAC said the shutdown at 310 Commerce Drive will begin July 31st and be completed in April 2027. Armor IMAC makes thermal transfer ribbons for printing labels and barcodes. After careful consideration, Armor IMAC has made the difficult decision to consolidate its U.S. operations and commence an orderly wind-down process of its thermal transfer ribbon operations in Amherst this year. The company said since Armor and IMAC came together in 2021, it has been the company's sincere goal to maintain the Amherst facility. Despite meaningful investments, economic and industry headwinds ultimately proved too difficult to overcome. Armor IMAC said it will continue to maintain a small sales team and Fluid Inks, a separate business in Amherst. The notice filed by the company said 199 of the location's 250 employees will be affected by the closing, leaving 51 unaffected. Meanwhile, Armor IMAC will invest $6 million to expand its thermal transfer ribbon plant in Hebron, Kentucky, and add 44 jobs, bringing the size of its workforce there to 100 employees. We are proud to deepen our commitment to Kentucky and the Boone County community through this expansion and are grateful for the support of Governor Andy Beshear's administration and the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority, said Armor IMAC Chief Operating Officer Ryan Heitkamp in a statement. This investment will strengthen our manufacturing capacity to meet growing customer demand while creating high-quality job opportunities for local residents. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the state and contributing to Kentucky's ongoing economic momentum. Beshear's office at Armor IMAC's expansion will increase production capacity and consolidate select production volumes from other facilities within its global network. Beshear called the expansion a testament to not only our state's resources and business-friendly environment, but also to the skilled workforce and dedicated partners collaborating at the local and state levels. I am happy to see 44 new quality jobs coming to Boone County, and I look forward to Armor IMAC's continued success. Sadly, another loss for us.
Yes. Cruise ship on way to Spain. This is a Reuters article. A luxury cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak and marooned since Sunday off the coast of Cape Verde left for Spain on Wednesday, a Reuters witness said, after 3 people, 2 of them seriously ill, were evacuated. The MV Hondius, with nearly 150 people on board, was expected to dock in Spain's Tenerife in the Canary Islands within 3 days, Spain's health minister said, adding that those still on board were not showing symptoms of the disease. Once in port, if they are still healthy, all non-Spanish citizens will be repatriated to their countries, Monica Garcia told a news conference in Madrid. The 14 Spanish passengers will be quarantined in a military hospital in Madrid, Garcia said. The duration of the quarantine will depend on when they potentially had contact with the virus, adding that it has a 45-day incubation period. 3 people, a Dutch couple and a German national, have so far died in the outbreak. A total of 8 people, including a Swiss citizen who returned home and is being treated in Zurich, are suspected to have contracted the virus, with 3 of them confirmed by laboratory testing, the World Health Organization said. South Africa confirmed that it had identified among the victims the Andean strain of the virus that can, in rare cases, spread among humans through very close contact. This is the only hantavirus strain that is known to cause human-to-human transmission, but such transmission is very rare and only happens due to very close contact, South Africa's health ministry said. Nevertheless, some Tenerife residents said they were worried about the ship docking there. People are scared, said Margarita Maria, 62, adding that the boat should go elsewhere in Spain. WHO chief Tedros Adhanom said in social media that the 3 people evacuated from the ship Wednesday were on their way to the Netherlands. The Dutch Foreign Ministry said these people included a Dutch person, a German, and a Briton, and that they would be transported to specialized hospitals in Europe. One of the aircraft transporting 2 patients from the Cape Verde to Amsterdam was due to stop in Morocco to refuel, but Morocco refused to allow the aircraft to land, and the plane was instead refueling at the airport in Gran Canaria, Spain's health ministry said.
As part of our newspaper reading, we now present today's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. Vasolino Joseph. Jardine Janet Campbell. Mangiello Brian. Smith Michael R. Supples Ann. Walter Mary. Also, on the national level, Ted Turner. He was a brash sportsman and entrepreneur whose ambition and instincts led to a media empire that included groundbreaking news network CNN has died. CNN reported on Wednesday, citing a press release from Turner Enterprises. He was 87 years old. He was known variously as the Mouth of the South, Captain Outrageous, and Terrible Tad. He became a billionaire by taking over his father's billboard business, buying a television station in 1970, and parlaying that into what would become the vast, groundbreaking television group. He was also a major philanthropist. In 1997, he made philanthropic history by announcing that he was donating $1 billion to fund the United Nations operations. In 2017, after the last installment of the donation, Turner called it the best investment I've ever made. His Turner Foundation also gave millions to environmental groups while he promoted and invested in clean energy. He became one of the largest private landowners in the United States, with more than 1.9 million acres in 6 states, including Montana. He also owned ranches in Argentina's Patagonia. He was married and divorced 3 times and had 5 children. Once again, if you need any further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555.
And now we'll go to our horoscope readings from the Royal Stars. Happy birthday for Thursday, May 7th, 2026. You like to make a good impression because you are self-aware. You are also inquisitive, deeply sensitive, and compassionate. Simplicity is the key to life this year. It's time to build solid foundations, both externally and internally. The stars show the kind of day you'll have: 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And perusing the signs, it looks like everyone is having either an average or a so-so day. Aries, 2 stars, so-so day. It's another scrappy day. Steer clear of authority figures, bosses, and the police, because anger and frustration might get you into trouble. Tonight, you're high vis. Taurus, so-so. With the Sun and Mercury in your sign, you have something to say today. Furthermore, Taurus is a political sign, well versed in current history and news. Tonight, explore. Gemini, average day. This is the classic day for disputes about inheritances, wills, shared property, or anything that you own jointly with someone else. Tonight, check your finances. Cancer, a so-so day. Summon up all the patience you have when dealing with partners, spouses, and close friends today. Difficulties will arise, especially if parents and bosses are in the picture as well. Tonight, cooperate. Leo, so-so day. There's a strong probability that controversial subjects will lead to arguments today because people are impatient, feisty, and ready to defend their ideas. Tonight, get better organized. Virgo, a so-so day. Avoid discussions about how to share costs, expenses, or who picks up the tab today. Likewise, discussions about kids and shared responsibilities are also likely to lead to arguments. Tonight, socialize. Libra, a so-so day. Do what you can to keep the peace in the family today, and especially to stay on good terms with spouses, partners, and close friends. Tonight, relax at home. Sounds like a good day to do that. Scorpio, average day. This is the classic day for some feisty exchanges that are work-related, health-related, or related to a pet. You might get involved with a relative, and before you know it, the fur is flying. Tonight, go gently. Sagittarius, a so-so day. If you are a parent, Be patient with your kids today because it's very easy for things to go south in a New York minute. Tonight, money and possessions. Capricorn, so-so day. Today, the moon is in your sign, which can make you more emotional than usual. On top of this, it's at odds with fiery Mars, which creates needless disputes. Tonight, you're strong. Aquarius, average day. You might encounter money squabbles with someone today or arguments about something you own or something they own. Tonight, solitude. And Pisces is an average day. Use patience and mental willpower to avoid arguments with friends or members of groups, which might easily arise today. Tonight, friendships.
And today in history, in 1824, Ludwig van Beethoven, Ninth Symphony, debuted in Vienna, Austria. The deaf composer shared the stage with conductor Michael Umlauf, both of them conducting, but the orchestra was instructed to ignore Beethoven and follow Umlauf. And in 1915, a German submarine sank the Lusitania, a British ocean liner. Of the nearly 2,000 people who died, 128 were Americans. And in the year 2000, Vladimir Putin is inaugurated as Russia's president. He had been acting president since December 31, 1999, when Boris Yeltsin resigned. And news in brief. A traveling museum spreading stories of hope plans to visit Lackawanna. An interactive museum on wheels that brings stories of hope from around the country will make a stop in Lackawanna on Saturday and Sunday. People of Hope, faith-filled stories of neighbors helping neighbors, visits Western New York as part of a nationwide tour sponsored by Catholic Charities USA. The traveling museum, set up inside a retrofitted tractor-trailer, is free and open to the public. It will be parked from 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Saturday and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sunday at the Our Lady of Victory Human Services Campus at 790 Ridge Road in Lackawanna. The exhibit features more than 40 professionally produced videos of staff and volunteers of Catholic charities across the country sharing their meaningful, memorable encounters with families and individuals in need. It also includes a recording studio where visitors can share stories of hope and service. In addition, visitors can experience an interactive poverty simulator, gain a greater understanding of poverty in New York and across the United States, and listen to recordings of book excerpts about poverty, social isolation, bridge building, and community action. The tour began in March and will travel the U.S. for 2.5 years. It is funded by a 2024 grant of nearly $5 million from the Lilly Endowment as part of its national storytelling initiative on Christian faith and life. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from today's Buffalo News for Thursday, May 7th, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Pat Lamont.
and Ruth Nowotniak. And we'll now go to our local news. Our first article, Miller Williams will appeal rulings on cities borrowing. And this is written by Justin Sondel, who's a news staff reporter. Comptroller Barbara Miller Williams is continuing her fight over borrowing for capital projects despite 2 court rulings against her. Miller Williams said she is appealing to the state's highest court to uphold her decision to not borrow money for projects, borrowing that was already approved by city lawmakers. In a news release, Miller Williams said she was upholding fiscal responsibility, ensuring transparency, and protecting the long-term financial stability of the city of Buffalo. She said she felt it important to continue her legal fight in light of Buffalo's proposed 25% property tax increase and increases to water, sewer, and user fees. In a phone interview with the Buffalo News, Miller Williams said she has heard from constituents across the city worried about being able to pay their bills after the coming tax hike and fee increases, and that she owes it to them to exhaust all available options. I was encouraged by citizens and taxpayers to pursue this legal matter and to go to the end, and that's exactly what I'm doing, she said. The money she refuses to borrow in excess of the internal cap, $110 million, that was authorized by the Common Council in 2024 and $95 million approved last year, was earmarked for capital projects, including construction projects and other costs related to infrastructure. Miller Williams eventually borrowed $29 million last year, slightly more than the debt cap set by her office, and which she has said is binding. Miller Williams has argued that as the city's elected comptroller, she has the power to set an annual debt cap for the city. She said her decision takes precedence over the objections of the Common Council and the mayor, whose job it is to set the city's capital budget, a spending plan separate from the city budget used to fund infrastructure projects and large-scale equipment purchases. The city is at about 10% of its borrowing limit under the state constitution and could borrow nearly $1.5 billion more before reaching that limit. When Miller Williams first announced her intention last summer to refuse to borrow the money, South District Council member Christopher Scanlon, then the mayor, mounted a public pressure campaign to try to force her hand. As she continued her refusal, Fillmore Council member Mitchell Nowakowski and Scanlon sued in September. A state Supreme Court justice agreed and in September ordered Miller Williams to borrow the money. Miller appealed to the appellate division. That court ruled against her in a unanimous decision in April. The city's capital budget increased significantly in 2024 because, in part, the city began borrowing for Buffalo Public Schools projects. The school district projects are more than 97% reimbursable through the state education department and would be fully reimbursed for the remaining funding through district's reserves. The district had been bonding through the Joint Schools Construction Board, a state-approved entity that reached its sunset in 2024. From the beginning, Scanlon has argued that the 2024 capital budget did not exceed the comptroller's own debt cap, since anything beyond the $28 million limit was reimbursable through the school district or through state and federal grants. Scanlon, in an interview with the Buffalo News, said the situation has been frustrating, as he and other officials have watched a full construction season and part of another go by with missed opportunities for improving the city for residents, despite 2 rulings ordering Miller Williams to borrow the money. He has described her actions as a dereliction of duty. At this point, it's entered the theater of the absurd, Scanlon said. The city has so far spent more than $200,000 on outside counsel for the lawsuit, with the Corporation Counsel's office unable to represent both parties. Once the comptroller files a motion to appeal, the State Court of Appeals will decide whether to hear the case. Because of the unanimous decision of the Fourth Department, the Court of Appeals is not obligated to take it up. The court rarely takes cases that have been ruled on as unanimous by the Fourth District. Acknowledging that the motion of appeal will likely be denied, Miller Williams said she will borrow for the full amount if that comes to be. I am prepared and ready to go ahead and advance into the bond market at the amount that was approved by the Buffalo Common Council if the motion is denied, she said. Miller Williams has argued throughout the dispute that she is preventing irresponsible borrowing to protect taxpayers from future debt service and interest payments that will cause taxes to go up. But Nowakowski and Scanlon have said her refusal to borrow has cost the city millions of dollars because of rising construction costs and missed opportunities for projects with matching funds from other levels of government, in addition to denying city residents the improved infrastructure and equipment the city desperately needs.
Viral anthem moment becomes Olive Branch. Maybe all it took to improve strained relations, cross-border relations, was a song. After nearly a year and a half of tension and sharp drop in Canadian visitors, Buffalo's tourism officials are hoping that a surge of hockey-fueled goodwill can bring back their neighbors. And they're striking while hearts are still warm from that internationally viral moment that saw thousands of Sabres fans singing the Canadian national anthem at a recent Buffalo Sabres playoff game. To do that, Visit Buffalo has put up 3 billboards in southern Ontario with a simple message, "Oh Canada, we meant every word." It's signed with love from Buffalo. The billboards target Canadian hockey fans headed to Buffalo as the Sabres prepared to host the Montreal Canadiens Wednesday in the quest for the Stanley Cup. The signs are located at the end of the Queen Elizabeth Way near the Peace Bridge, as well as heading into and out of Toronto on either side of the Gardiner Expressway. With Canadian visitation to Western New York down dramatically, the agency has launched a targeted push into southern Ontario, from billboards along major highways to new Hockey Weekend guide aimed at reminding Canadians how welcome they are in Buffalo and persuading them to return, even as lingering political pressures have kept many of them away. The region's tourism attractions have noted a 30 to 40% drop in Canadian visitors, according to Visit Buffalo, and cross-border trips are down another 16% compared with last year when the slump first started. Visit Buffalo has kept up a limited amount of Canadian advertising in its marketing mix since pulling back last year, but there seems to be no better time than the present to lean in. Good idea.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. You didn't see my wave.
No, I didn't. Mercy Hospital gets first A safety grade, and this is by John Harris, news staff reporter. For the first time in recent memory, 3 Western New York hospitals received A grades from an organization that monitors hospitals for patient safety. Mercy Hospital of Buffalo was the largest area hospital to earn the top safety grade from Leapfrog Group, a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. It is the first ever A grade for Mercy Hospital, a 387-bed facility in South Buffalo that is the flagship institution of Catholic Health System. Another Catholic Health hospital, Mount St. Mary's Hospital in Lewiston, received its 4th consecutive A grade from Leapfrog. United Memorial Medical Center in Batavia, which is part of Rochester Regional Health, also landed at A. Derek Drake, president of Mercy Hospital, said the hospital's doctors, nurses, clinical and non-clinical support staff, leadership team, and volunteers were responsible for the hospital's first A. A grades are earned, not given, and every one of our team members played a vital role in earning this A, Drake said. This achievement reflects our ongoing commitment to advancing patient safety, experience, and outcome. It's a powerful reminder that our team shows up every day fully committed to the people we serve, and this A grade stands as a clear symbol of our dedication to the Western New York community. Leapfrog Group, which describes itself as a nonprofit healthcare safety watchdog, assigns a letter grade, A through F, to more than 2,300 general hospitals in the U.S. The ratings are closely watched in a healthcare industry because they evaluate a hospital's ability to protect patients from preventable medical errors, accidents, and infections. The safety grades come out twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, and about 1/3 of hospitals typically receive an A. In the fall, the 8 counties of western New York had just one A hospital, Mount St. Mary's. At that time, Catholic Health's Kenmore Mercy Hospital dropped to a B, the same grade it received this spring, to end a streak of 23 consecutive A grades that had put the hospital in a select group statewide and nationally. Here's a roundup of how the 14 western New York hospitals scored. The hospitals are categorized by their most recent spring safety grades, while their fall grades will be noted second. A, Mercy Hospital, up from a B. Mount St. Mary's Hospital stayed an A, and United Memorial Medical Center up to a B. B grade, Kenmore Mercy Hospital stayed at B. UMPC in Chautauqua came up from a C. C grade, Bradford Regional Medical Center stayed the same. Buffalo General Medical Center stayed the same. Millard Fillmore Suburban Hospital stayed the same. Olean General Hospital the same, and Sisters of Charity Hospital the same. And a D grade, Erie County Medical Center stayed at a D grade. Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center, Brooks Memorial Hospital in Dunkirk, and Jones Memorial Hospital in Wellsville were not assigned a grade because those hospitals did not participate in the 2024 or 2025 Leapfrog Hospital Survey. Nationally, Leapfrog this spring did not assign safety grades to 450 hospitals, about 16% of hospitals evaluated, that did not participate in those 2 surveys. The decision came after a federal court ruling in March sided with 5 Florida hospitals that claimed Leapfrog unfairly penalized them in the ratings because they did not participate in the voluntary surveys. In addition, safety net hospitals such as ECMC have long called out Leapfrog for using data that disadvantages hospitals that treat poorer and sicker patients. Those facilities have claimed Leapfrog's data doesn't accurately reflect the severity of patient illness that safety net hospitals see.
Well, we're in pretty good shape locally, I would think.
I would think so.
Baskin Evergreen pressed state to fund housing for HIV patients. A Western New York lawmaker and health service provider are calling for the state budget to cover the cost of housing for an estimated 2,800 low-income HIV patients in counties outside of New York City. State Senator April Baskin said people living with HIV are far more likely to take their medication if they are living in stable housing as opposed to homelessness. Joined by Assemblymember Harry Bronson of Rochester and members of the End AIDS New York Community Coalition, Baskin noted that in existing programs in New York City, in conjunction with the state's Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, has been providing housing for HIV patients in the 5 boroughs for decades. This legislation is about equity, she said. It's about ensuring that where you live does not determine whether or not you have access to life-saving care and housing. She said the estimated 2,800 people across upstate and Long Island are low income and disproportionately Black, Latino, and LGBTQ+. Under her proposal, the state would cover the portion of the shelter costs that otherwise would be covered by counties, which would have the option to opt in or out of the program. She said Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz wrote to Governor Kathy Hochul to say Erie County is ready to opt in. County executives of Albany, Monroe, Onondaga, and Westchester are also on board. Everybody is poised and ready to get this done. We just got to get it done in this budget, Baskin said. The budget is now more than a month late. Hochul has indicated that a handshake agreement could come as soon as this week. Bronson estimated the cost of the program would be around $3.7 million for the first year, up to around $25 million annually in the third year. He said costs would later be offset by Medicaid costs and additional problems that were prevented because people had stable housing and took their medications.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is approximately 15 minutes past the hour, and we will now go on to our sports. Our first article is by news sports reporter Lance Lysowski. Power of reliability, Sabres defenseman makes mark. After waiting weeks for his right knee to heal, Owen Power sat with one of hockey's renowned trainers last summer to hear his opinion on how the Buffalo Sabres defenseman should approach his off-season workouts. Andy O'Brien works with many of the NHL's best players. He's been a trusted advisor to Sidney Crosby since the future Hall of Famer was 13 years old. Each team employs a strength and conditioning staff, but the league's superstars often turn to O'Brien for his perspective each off-season. Power had always known his feet could be a problem on the ice. He's seen it on video. He's heard about it from the coaches. But the video clips O'Brien showed Power during their first meeting was confirmation that lower body strength was not the only factor behind the puck and net front battles he lost during his third full season with the Sabres. He noticed I get a wide base and my feet stop moving, the defenseman said. When he said that, it made a lot of sense to me. Any lingering doubts about Power's readiness for the playoffs should be gone. Power proved with his performance against the Boston Bruins that he can be trusted in the pressure-packed moments of fast-paced, tight-checking games. The physicality he provided the Sabres did not look the same as the big hits delivered by Rasmus Dahlin and Matthias Samuelsson, but Power used his size and strength to protect the puck or take it away. He wasn't out-muscled in front of the net as he had been in past seasons. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff had Power on the ice for 23 minutes 31 seconds in Game 5 and 21 minutes 24 seconds in Game 6. For the series, Power produced 4 assists and a +5 rating, while averaging 20 minutes 37 seconds of ice time. His defense partner, Bowen Byram, was the only Buffalo player to be on the ice for more 5-on-5 goals scored than Power. The Sabres outscored the Bruins 6-3 with Power and Byram on the ice. The pair will face more challenging matchups against the Canadiens, especially on the road, but Power was reliable during his first career playoff series. The wait was longer than fans wanted, but Ruff and former general manager Kevin Adams always believed Power would become the type of defenseman who can make a difference in the playoffs. The Sabres saw with Dahlin that defensemen, especially those who don't spend time in the American Hockey League, need time and patience to learn from their mistakes in the NHL. It's an unforgiving position to play because most people know when you're to blame for a goal, but they may not notice you at all if you're playing well. The 2024-25 season was an important transition year for Power. The change from Don Granato to Ruff brought a new system and expectations, especially for the Sabres defensemen. Under Ruff, they had to box out around their own net. Some, especially Dahlin, were ready to meet the demands of Ruff's systems, but others like Power needed time to adjust. Buffalo had a -5 goal differential at 5-on-5 when Power was on the ice last season, according to Natural Stat Trick. On one hand, he totaled a career-high 40 points. On the other, he was too inconsistent in battles along the boards and in front of his own net. The summer of 2025 was supposed to be Power's opportunity to get stronger, 3 months in the gym and on the ice. His plans were derailed during the second-to-last game of the season when Florida Panthers winger Carter Verhaeghe fell into Power's right knee. Power didn't need surgery, but he lost a portion of his off-season to recovery and rehabilitation. He still arrived at training camp stronger and ready to prove that year 4 in the NHL would be different. Tweaking his off-season training and focusing on his feet paid dividends early. Power's production dropped from 40 to 29 points. He lost his role on the second power play unit to Byram, who's proven to be more assertive and aggressive. but Power's totals at even strength were the same. The Sabres benefited from the improvement he made in his own zone.
Knicks keep pushing forward. It does not take much for championship-starved Big Apple basketball fans to daydream about what an NBA title run by the New York Knicks might look like. The Knicks have given their fans even more reason to dream over the last 11 days. The third-seeded Knicks look to continue their dominant run and take a commanding lead in the Eastern Conference semifinals Wednesday night when they hosted the seventh-seeded Philadelphia 76ers in Game 2 of the best-of-7 series. Jalen Brunson scored 27 of his game-high points, 35 in the first half Monday, when the Knicks rolled to a 137-98 victory. The win was the fourth straight for the Knicks, who closed out the Atlanta Hawks with 3 consecutive lopsided victories in their 6-game first-round series. New York, which fell behind Atlanta with consecutive 1-point losses in Games 2 and 3, beat the Hawks 114-98 in Game 4 on April 25th, before routing them 126-97 in Game 5 on April 28th and 140-89 last Thursday night. You hope that at this time you're the best version of yourselves, Knicks center Karl Anthony Towns said. The best versions of the Knicks has been historic. New York is the first NBA team to win 3 straight playoff games by at least 25 points apiece. The Knicks also are the second team to end one series and begin another with consecutive victories by the least 30 points. The 1986 Boston Celtics beat the Hawks 132-99 to end an Eastern Conference semifinal series before routing the Milwaukee Bucks 128-96 in the Game 1 of the conference finals. The Celtics went on to win the NBA title. These Knicks are 11 wins away from that destination, and unlike their fans, not quite ready to entertain such notions on their Brunson, their famously tunnel vision captain.
And on to the MLB. Bellinger puts on hitting shoes. As the New York Yankees were surging last week, Cody Bellinger was slumping. Now he is among the Yankees putting up some of big numbers over their past 5 games. Bellinger endured a 4-for-29 slump from April 22nd to 29th as the Yankees won 6 of 8 games. During New York's current winning streak, Bellinger is 10 for 19 with 2 home runs and 11 runs batted in. The Yankees outscored opponents 46-14 during their past 5 games and opened the series with a 7-4 win on Tuesday night. I think we've been able to do it a number of different ways, New York's Paul Goldschmidt said after starting at first base for the second straight game in place of Ben Rice, who's out with a hand injury. Bellinger hit an RBI double in the first inning after the Yankees trailed by 3 runs. He added a 2-run double in the 7th after Ryan McMahon belted a tying 2-run homer in the second inning, and Jazz Chisholm Jr. hit a tie-breaking shot off Jacob deGrom in the 6th. Texas, which had lost 6 of its past 8 games, finished with 10 hits, but did little after scoring 3 times in the first inning. Josh Young had 3 hits before striking out with the bases loaded in the 8th inning. He is hitting .400, 20 for 50 during a 13-game hitting streak. In other news, the Yankees will honor longtime radio announcer John Sterling, who died on Monday at the age of 87, with a patch on their uniforms for the remainder of the season. The Yankees will continue to wear caps with the initials JS on the back through May 17th. The team will switch to the patch as their tributes to Sterling on May 18th, when the Yankees begin when the Yankees' next homestand begins. The Rays roll on. Ben Williamson singled in the tie-breaking run at the 8th inning as the Tampa Bay Rays stayed hot with their 11th win in 12 games, rallying past the Toronto Blue Jays 4-3 in St. Petersburg, Florida. And the New York State Mets and Colorado Rockies opened a 3-game series in Denver on Monday, and it might be the only game the teams get this week.
Wilson taking memories as demolition begins. When the Buffalo Bills took on the New York Jets in January, fans knew it could be the last game played in Highmark Stadium, and it was. The team did all it could in advance to prevent people from taking pieces of the stadium, listing turf and other items for sale. But they didn't need to worry about Mary Wilson taking anything. "What does it feel like?" Wilson said Saturday. "I was there January 4th and walked down the tunnel, and I was on the field before the game. And then I took a picture leaving with Ralph's name up there in gold and other Wall of Famers. And it was just people asking, 'What am I taking?' I'm taking memories. So many great memories." Wilson, the wife of the late Ralph Wilson, was speaking at the 22nd annual Call to Courage Awards breakfast in Buffalo, just days before the piece-by-piece demolition of the old stadium began. The breakfast is hosted each year by former Bills quarterback Frank Reich, and he interviewed Mary Wilson partway through the event. Mary Nee McLean met Ralph Wilson, the founder and owner of the Buffalo Bills, in 1989, and she met the Ralph not long after. "I remember my first game," Wilson said Saturday. I came in 1990. Ralph brought me to my first NFL game, and it was a great ride from 1990, and it's going to continue in the new stadium. The new Highmark Stadium is on track to open this season with the annual return of the blue and red practice on August 8th, set to be the first big event. While moving across the street means a new chapter, Mary is on board with the needed change. "I think Buffalo deserves the best of everything," she said. "So much thought has gone into the conditions of the wind, and of course, you're still going to have the shovel, which I think is great. And the fact that it's an open-air stadium is so important. That's the way football should be played." When Reich asked Wilson to share some of her most memorable moments in the stadium, she looked right back at him. The comeback of 1993 is, of course, her favorite. She remembers the score, the Houston Oilers leading the Bills 28-3 at half. She remembers the company joined in the box by a dear friend from San Antonio, Texas, who has since passed. "She was one of my best friends, and her son was there," Wilson said, "and it's halftime, and I'm going, okay, I know we can win this game. Everybody get ready." Wilson was correct, though not before the Oilers first extended their third quarter lead to 35-3. But Reich, filling in for an injured Jim Kelly, orchestrated what was at the time the largest comeback in NFL history, winning the overtime playoff game 41-38. As for a more recent memory, Wilson looked back at the past year's season opener, the final season opener in Old Highmark Stadium. It's not hard to see the thread between the games that stand out to her. Once again, the Bills trailed late in the game, this time by 15 points to the Baltimore Ravens. Wilson recalled hearing after the game how Bills quarterback Josh Allen was upset to see fans leave early when the deficit became too much to overcome. But Wilson stayed in place, plus she applies her approach to her guests. "Well, I never leave early," she said, "and if anybody in our box ever left early, I don't care. They never came back." The Bills stormed back a game-winning field goal, giving them a 41-40 victory as time expired. Fireworks went off around the stadium, and players and coaches talked post-game about how much the win meant in light of the final season in the stadium. Oh, beautiful memories.
Yes. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is approximately 30 minutes past the hour. We will now go to Ask Eric. Brother's burial plans reject his Jewish faith tradition. Dear Eric, my older brother and I were born and raised in a Jewish household. My brother's first wife was Jewish. His second is not. At a recent dinner with my brother and his wife, she informed us of his planned funeral arrangements, which involve cremation and a memorial sometime in the future. While she told us all of his wants, he never said a word. By the way, this is not something that's imminent. Also, she is very controlling, and we feel these are her wants, not his. In fact, she said she has spoken with several rabbis, and they told her cremation is okay. I know our rabbi would not agree. I would like to send a letter to my brother explaining why I hope he will follow our Jewish heritage and have a Jewish funeral, just like all of our family members have had in the past. Should I keep my mouth shut and mind my own business, or broach this subject with him? Signed, Concerned Brother. Dear brother, neither. It's worth having a conversation with him to make sure that his wants are being considered and that he's not in a relationship that's unhealthy. But that conversation can't be about your wants. It's natural to have an opinion, particularly about something that has so much emotional, spiritual, and cultural weight as this. But unless he asks for your opinion, don't give it. Instead, approach him with curiosity, and do it by phone or in person rather than via a letter. This will allow both of you to hear and understand each other more clearly, and for you to ask follow-up questions. Be careful not to express an opinion about his relationship that might derail the conversation. However, if you fear that he's not being heard or that he's being bossed around, asking questions can help you determine if there's a deeper issue, like emotional abuse. The larger objective for you is for you to be a support to your brother. He may not be making the choice that you want, and that may be something you have to accept. But what's most important is that he's making the choice that he wants. Go into this conversation with that objective top in mind, and it'll go a lot more smoothly. Dear Eric, we have had a neighbor for years who has been a decent neighbor. Years ago, she encroached into our concrete driveway, which in our area requires a 2-foot setback from the property line. We brought it up a few times over the years, and she always just shrugged and said it's no big deal. Due to how we worked and that we had parents with health issues, we had neither the time nor the energy to deal with it. We left the matter unaddressed. She works for an attorney's office. Our state had strict adverse possession laws, so we didn't worry. They recently removed the adverse possession laws, which, like squatters' rights, governed whether a person who had occupied a property that the person didn't own could claim legal ownership. It's abhorrent to me that people think they are entitled to something that isn't theirs. I recently asked her to sign an easement agreement with stipulation of removal of the encroachment when her home is sold or leaves her possession, since the law isn't protecting us. She took it badly. She wanted us to pay for a property survey and said to get a lawyer. When I said I will not pay, but I'll get an attorney, she removed the encroachment but left it a mess and still did not leave the 2-foot setback. She will not speak to us, and she has bad-mouthed us to other neighbors, and we are at a loss as to how to move forward. Signed, Not Feeling Neighborly. Dear Neighborly, the direction of forward depends on your goals. If you want to get her to follow the law with regard to your property line, it does sound like getting an attorney is the best option available to you. Despite the fact that she's been a good neighbor for the most part, her actions regarding the driveway and her response to your request indicate that she's not open to discussion about your property. This is unfortunate, and from your telling, needlessly aggressive. It's interesting that she said it was no big deal, but when asked to put an agreement in writing, changed her tune. Sometimes something is only no big deal if one person is getting the better part of the deal. If, however, you want to preserve a neighborly relationship, you may want to let it be. It doesn't sound like there's much of this relationship to preserve, however, so it may not be worth sacrificing a part of your property for someone who isn't respecting you.
And our first life feature is anti-Semitic attacks hit record levels in 2025, audit shows. Amid several high-profile attacks against Jews globally, a new report indicates anti-Semitic assaults in the United States reached record levels in 2025. An annual audit released Wednesday by the Anti-Defamation League showed that while incidents it classifies as anti-Semitic decreased, physical attacks slightly rose from 196 incidents in 2024 to 203 in 2025. In 2022, the last full year before the Israel-Hamas war, it was lower at 111 assaults, but ADL used a different definition to count anti-Semitic incidents at that time. In 2025, the audit identified 3 people killed in anti-Semitic attacks, the first year since 2019, when U.S. Jews were murdered in hate crimes. When you look at the fact that assaults have increased, it speaks to why so many in the Jewish community feel vulnerable, says Oren Segal, Senior Vice President of Counterterrorism and Intelligence at ADL. There's still a high level of anxiety. The audit, as well as reports from other watchdogs and government agencies tracking hate crimes against Jewish Americans, shows incidents have increased after the Hamas-led October 7, 2023 attacks in southern Israel, followed by Israel's devastating siege of Gaza. ADL's audit includes harassment, vandalism, and physical attacks. Researchers gather data using law enforcement and news reports, but the latest source of incidents are those reported directly by alleged victims. The ADL has faced scrutiny in recent years for what critics consider its conflation of pro-Palestinian activism and anti-Semitism. But outside experts said the ADL's audit aligns with larger trends around hate crime reporting, showing Jewish Americans face increasing threats and attacks regardless of whether they support Israel. The current targeting of Jewish communities, the violence against individuals for their identity has increased, said Rachel Carol Rivas, Deputy Director of Research at the Southern Poverty Law Center, a group that monitors and seeks to combat bigotry, and we see the politicization and weaponization of it. FBI data in August showed anti-Jewish hate crimes comprised nearly 70% of all religious-based hate crimes, despite being only 2% of the American population. Jews made up 16% of all hate crime victims in 2024, the highest level since FBI recording began. Hate crimes are historically underreported, making accurate accounting difficult, and federal data often has long delays. Carol Rivas added that decreases of nonviolent incidents in the audit appear in part attributed to fewer in-person events, leaflet or flyer distributions, or other gatherings, particularly among white nationalists and neo-Nazis. Still, she said SPLC has seen increases in conspiracy theories, tropes, and language about Jews, especially among youth on social media. Since the ADL reporting began in 1979, the audit showed 2025 was the third highest year for anti-Semitic incidents on record, with 6,274, but down from the record of over 9,300 incidents in 2024. Incidents at Jewish institutions declined substantially, including a record decrease in bomb threats from 627 in 2024 to just 59 in 2025. But 2024 reflected a spike from just 91 in 2022. In the audit, colleges and universities saw fewer incidents compared with 2024, when ADL said the pro-Palestinian encampment movement drove spikes in incidents. ADL's characterization is controversial since demonstrators, including many Jewish students, said they advocated for Palestinian rights. While harassment and vandalism appear to have decreased, ADL said physical assaults, a data point experts say is more clear, rose to new highs. The audit said at least 300 people experienced assaults. The audit said ranging from politicians to random people. In April 2025, a man firebombed Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home hours after he and his family held a Passover Seder. In December, a suspect allegedly made anti-Semitic comments outside a New York City Jewish center before stabbing a Jewish man. ADL identified 3 deaths in 2025. In late May, a gunman fatally shot 2 Israeli embassy staffers at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington. Days later, an 82-year-old Jewish woman in Colorado died from injuries when a man lobbed gasoline bombs at a pro-Israel rally. Officials said suspects in both attacks made remarks about Israel's actions in Gaza. The ADL said its audit differentiates criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. But since the 2023 attacks, ADL's annual audit began including certain expressions that oppose Zionism, along with violent resistance against Israel and Zionists, which the audit's methodology said could be perceived as supporting terrorism or attacks on Jews, Israelis, and Zionists. For example, the progressive news outlet Jewish Currents found instances in ADL's 2023 audit in which the pro-Palestinian protest slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," was counted among anti-Semitic incidents multiple times. Many advocates of Palestinian rights say that that is a call for freedom and equality, while pro-Israel groups see the slogan as calling for the removal of Jews from modern Israel. Incidents related to Israel or Zionism made up about 45% of all cases, the audit said, adding this declined compared to 2024, but has remained high since before 2023. Aryeh Tuchman, director of the Nexus Center for Anti-Semitism Research and former ADL anti-Semitism researcher, called rising assaults, even as overall incidents declined, red flag, particularly with deadly attacks in 2025. The audit is crucial, he added, but incidents need to be studied to understand people's motivations and factors leading to physical assaults against Jews. Simply looking at a list of incidents is not going to tell you that answer, he said. You need to study it much more deeply.
Farmers avoid USDA surveys as trust in data erodes. And this is a Bloomberg News article. American farmers are ignoring United States Department of Agriculture surveys in the latest sign of distrust in government data. Reply rates for the USDA's annual prospective planting report sank in March to a record low, with just over a third of the 73,800 farm operations surveyed answering questions on the answering questions on the acres they will plant this spring of everything from corn and soybeans to tobacco and chickpeas. That compares with about 60% of farmers responding in 2018, with replies declining in each year since, according to government records. Farmers say they are wary of sharing data for reports they feel often work against them, especially with abundant harvests in recent years keeping crop prices under pressure. The mounting skepticism comes from the as the USDA is looking to become more responsive to farmers through a transformation that relies heavily on shared data. It also echoes a broader loss of trust in government data, particularly as President Trump has called into question federal statistics and information, from jobs reports to voter tallies and even weather maps. Iowa farmer Ben Renske says the agency's various surveys are too arduous and the markets often slump after the corresponding reports are released, affecting what they get paid for their crops. I don't trust the data, I don't trust the process, I don't trust their people, he said, and they monkey with my business. The trend may present complications for Trump's efforts to court farmers, a key voting bloc for him and the Republican Party. He has repeatedly hosted farmers at the White House, unveiling a $12 billion aid package for them in December, then holding a so-called celebration of agriculture, complete with a gold-colored tractor on the White House lawn in March. Intelligence from the farm is the lifeblood of the USDA's reports, resulting in findings and forecasts that influence the direction of global crop prices and ultimately helps determine how much consumers pay for food. But distrust in the USDA's conclusions is creating a vicious circle, with the lack of contributions making the agency's reports less accurate and in turn generating more farmer skepticism. That lack of accuracy also is resulting in more volatility in futures markets. A case in point is the January crops report from the USDA, which surprised the market when the agency unexpectedly boosted its estimate for the U.S. corn crop by 1.6% to a record 17.021 billion bushels. Most had been anticipating a slight downward revision from the USDA's previous forecast, and futures in Chicago subsequently posted their biggest daily decline in years. While it was known that farmers shifted heavily toward corn during the growing season, particularly after China halted its purchases of American soybeans, the unexpected increase in supply blindsided many. When the USDA is that far off without much explanation, it creates distrust in future reports. Darren Labar, who grows corn, soybeans, and wheat in Michigan, wrote to the USDA. He was one of 240 people who answered a request by the agency seeking feedback on ways to improve its data collection. You have to be able to trust the information that you're given, and if you can't even trust that, then why even do the report, he said in an interview. USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins said after the January report that the agency wanted to ensure it wasn't driving price outcomes. Deputy Secretary Stephen Vaden, who also addressed the issue at the agency's annual spring meeting with its data users. We understand that the data that we provide moves markets. We understand that it affects individual planning decisions by farmers, and therefore we know that the data we provide needs to be correct, he said. The National Agricultural Statistics Service in an emailed statement said it is working to address declining response rates and remains committed to providing timely, accurate, and useful statistics in service to American agriculture. Montana farmer Sarah Dang said she has little faith in the reports because she knows producers, herself included, often fill them out while pressed for time and distracted by all their responsibilities on the farm. Few have time to sit down and pull out the spreadsheets and other records they need to give accurate answers, she said. If you're in a hurry, you're just trying to remember the numbers off the top of your head. So I've always questioned the accuracy. Former USDA Chief Economist Seth Mayer is intimately familiar with the issues. He views the data the agency collects from farmers as the backbone of all the analysis and aid it provides for the agriculture sector. So when farmers don't participate, he said, the data suffers and then farmers lose even more faith in the USDA's findings. This isn't the farmers' fault per se, but it also can't be solved without them, said Mayer, now director of the University of Missouri's Food and Agricultural Policy Research Institute. The USDA has to go out and say, hey, there's good reasons that you want to do this. The information the agency solicits is used to, among other things, track crop plantings and harvests and estimate domestic and global inventories and demand. Richard Fordyce, the USDA Undersecretary, sees a potential solution in the agency's new One Farmer, One File initiative. The program is meant to streamline the way the USDA gets and internally shares the information on crops and farms it requires from growers looking to qualify for federal loans. Fordyce has been talking with colleagues about whether that information could be shared for survey purposes. Stephen Nicholson, head of crops at agriculture lender Rabobank, worries that low participation is eroding the agency's reputation as a gold standard of agricultural information. I don't want to lose that standard, Nicholson said, adding that he encourages farmers to fill out the surveys. That gives the market better data, better information.
And this is Alan Pergament's TV column on the Sabres fans embrace national TV coverage. Some Sabres fans might enjoy complaining about the national announcers, but that didn't stop them from watching TNT and ESPN during the first round series, the Stanley Cup playoffs with the Boston Bruins. To the surprise of fans of Sabres play-by-play announcer Dan Dunleavy and analyst Rob Ray, the local ratings for the 6-game series with the Bruins were higher on the National Hockey League's national broadcast partners than they were on local rights holder MSG for all but one game. And the one higher rating on MSG, the Sabres' 6-1 win in Game 4 on Sunday afternoon, was the only 1/10 of a point ahead of the combined rating on TNT and sister station truTV, 9.1 to 9.0. The streaming viewership on HBO Max was unavailable for the games on TNT and truTV. The highest rated game in the 6-game series was for the Bruins' 2-1 victory in Game 5 that forced Game 6. The combined rating for the game was 20.0, with TNT and truTV having a combined rating of 12.2. Also, just for a lot of these are statistics, so I'm going to cut a lot of this out. The Kenny Albert, who worked the Winter Olympics hockey for NBC, is considered the top national play-by-play announcer by many fans. And however, Pergament's favorite is Sean McDonough, who ended Buffalo's clinching victory in Game 6 over the Bruins by saying there was a celebration in Saberhood. He's also impressed by TNT's Brendan Burke, the New York Islanders voice, who called the Sabres Game 5 loss to Boston that was on top of the viral moment when Buffalo fans sang the Canadian national anthem after Cammy Clune's microphone problems. He referred to it as a pretty special moment. However, Burke and the rest of the TNT staff couldn't have been expected to instantly know how special it would become nationally as a symbol of respect and love between the two border countries. It was even called one of the highs of the week by anchor Willie Geist on NBC's Sunday Today. Well, that was good recognition.
Yes. And a little bit on U.S. history. Eastward Bound, massive World War II steam train on tour for a nation's 250th birthday. This is from USA Today. The world's largest steam train is heading east across the Mississippi River to help celebrate America's 250th birthday. The train, officially known as Big Boy number 4014, will make a 10-state swing starting in late May. Delivered to Union Pacific in 1941, the locomotive was among 25 built to haul wartime freight across the Continental Divide in Wyoming and Utah. Big Boy is the last one running, and in the 1960s was converted to burn oil instead of coal. Union Pacific couldn't be prouder to share this powerful piece of history with the nation and to be a part of America's birthday celebration. Union Pacific CEO Jim Vena said in a statement, "This tour celebrates our company's rich 164-year history, our nation's amazing story, and the people who have helped build our great country and our railroad." The Union Pacific Railroad is closely tied to President Abraham Lincoln, who founded the railroad in 1862 during the Civil War to help link California to the rest of the United States. The 1869 completion of the Transcontinental Railroad transformed the movement of people across the country. Big Boy is 133 feet long and weighs 102 million pounds. It traveled more than 1 million miles during its working life, hauling freight between Cheyenne and Ogden, Utah. The train typically draws large crowds of rail enthusiasts, and it's common to see superfans with cameras in hand chasing it in cars. The ground-shaking locomotive already did a western swing through California from its home base in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It will head east on May 25th, the first time it will cross the Mississippi River since its westward delivery run in 1941, according to railroad officials. Big Boy will make the following stops. May 30th, Omaha, Nebraska, home of Union Pacific's headquarters. June 3rd, West Chicago, Illinois. June 10th, Buffalo, New York. June 15th, Scranton, Pennsylvania. July 4th and 5th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. July 9th, 10th, Altoona, Pennsylvania. July 14th, Fostoria, Ohio. July 15th, St. Louis, Missouri. Other public viewing opportunities posted on the Union Pacific website, up.com, which also provides a real-time location tracker and other details. Oh, that would be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, May 7th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak. And please feel free to contact the radio reading service with any comments or suggestions you may have to make your listening experience more enjoyable. Thanks for listening.
Welcome summer with your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're planning a summer bash bigger and better than ever before. It's Friday, June 26th at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove, located at the corner of Union Road and William Street in Cheektowaga. You're invited to enjoy a buffet chicken and pasta dinner, your first drink on us, a basket raffle, and Buffalo Music Hall of Fame party band The Boys of Summer from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are $50 and support the 160 volunteers who read all the programming offered by Radio Reading. That's Friday, June 26th from 6 to 9 p.m. at Creekside Banquet Facility in Grove in Cheektowaga. Get your tickets now by calling 716-821-5555 extension 3 or online at nfradioreading.org. Thank you to New Era Cap Foundation, Tyverin Law, and Perry's Ice Cream for sponsoring this largest event of the year.
program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,